Oh, yeah. And I know all of his kids, too. All the Hawkins boys. Yeah, he's related. I know. I remember. You know, had another payoff. That didn't go well. Oh, yeah. All right, time to get going here. If you're lucky, that speaker will let you out early. Have these announcements to make tonight. Please keep in your prayers Jan and Carrie at the loss of Don. Don passed away yesterday afternoon. The funeral for Don will be Saturday here at the church building. There will be a time of visitation starting at 10 o'clock with the service being at 10:30. Also, Rosa Demas is undergoing rehab at Lynn County Hospital in Tahoga. Keep her in your prayers. Mike Holder Sr. is now at home with a home health nurse visiting him. Mike Holder Jr. underwent knee surgery yesterday in San Antonio, and he'll be home. Oh, he should be home by now. Any updates on that? I guess not. Huh? Okay. Keep in your prayers this list of people: Chris Camacho, Jay Plunkett, Rosa Perez, Robert Bucci, Wanda Wilkins, Billy Foster, Sue Fletcher, Kenneth Thomas, Larry Davis, Suzanne Chapman, and Willard Free. There'll be a gospel meeting at Ackerley with Paul Sharrow. It'll begin Sunday and continue through Wednesday evening. Further details are on the bulletin board if you're interested in attending that. New Mexico Christian Children's Home is collecting money for feeding the children there. There'll be a basket in the office. If you want to leave money there and you want to write a check, please make the check out to the home and then put commissary in the memo line so that they know that money's going to pay for food. There'll be a Lubbock lectureship on Sunday through Wednesday, October 12th through the 15th. The speakers and times are posted on the bulletin board. There will also be a God and Science seminar this Saturday, October 11th, with Dr. Michael Houts, who happens to be an MIT graduate and a NASA scientist. Details are on the bulletin board for that. I got to go to a Rotary Club meeting with my son last Friday, and I got to meet a NASA, not a NASA guy, but a Bezos guy, a Bezos astronaut. It was really interesting, He was a cardiac surgeon, so that's a big plus if you're trying to be an astronaut. And he tried like 5 or 6 times to get on with NASA, and every time he'd make it to the final cut, and the doctor that had military in front of it was always in front of him, and he never got it. So when Bezos went up, he said, "Oh, I got a chance now," and he did. In 15 minutes, that's it. It lasted 15 minutes being in space. Keenage Christian Conference is scheduled for Saturday, October the 18th in Denver City. The theme is Jesus Is. So check the bulletin board for that information. And then also mark your calendars for these upcoming dates. Mission Emphasis Day is December 7th. Our guest speaker will be Dominic DeSantos from Trinidad. Then the special mission contribution will be on December 14th. And that's all I got. Anybody have anything else? All right, that's it.
All right, one amendment that I will mention to what I had on the announcement sheet. Visited with Rosa Demas Monday afternoon. While I was there was a man there visiting with, I saw Rosa and all of her family. They were in there. They were visiting with, I think he was a man from hospice, and they were trying to determine where they were going to be sending her when her Medicare ran out for her to stay at Tahoka. They were not for sure when that was going to be. I'm assuming she's still at Tahoka at this point. I've not heard anything more about that, but very likely within the next week or so, maybe quicker, she will be moving somewhere, possibly here, but that's still to be seen. So, and I didn't know exactly how to put all that down, so there you are. Let's sing a little bit, number 613. Time is filled with
Let's go to God in prayer. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we're just so thankful for this beautiful fall day you've given us, this midweek service that you're allowing us to come to sing these songs of praise to you and glorify your name and to study more of your word tonight. We know that this is all due to you, and we're so thankful for that. We ask prayers now for all of those that are listening to our bulletin each Sunday, all of those that are shut-ins, nursing homes, at home, that would rather be here but aren't able to, and just watch over those that are watching after them. We ask now that you be with the Childs family on the loss of Don, be with Jan and Carrie and the rest of that family as they assemble this weekend to say their final goodbyes to Don, and just continue to be with them, and that we can continue to support the family and help them get through these trying times. We ask that you continue to be with Rosa as she adjusts to her new life and hopefully making progress and be able to go somewhere that she'll be happy and be well taken care of. Just continue to be with her and all the rest of her family also. Thankful that Mike Holder Sr. is doing better at this time, and just continue to watch over him and those that are caring for him also. Be with Mike as he had his knee surgery today, and hopefully he did make it home and will make a speedy recovery, and he'll be back with us soon. We pray for our youth as always, and just continue to watch over them. They're faced with so many temptations each and every day. Satan's always there. Just watch over them, help them get past these temptations, not give in to others, and do things they shouldn't be doing. We're just thankful for tonight, that once again that we can come to this midweek service and study your word and not unmolested as they can't do in a lot of other countries. Thankful for Mark and his ability to lead singing tonight and be those that are teaching Bible classes tonight. And we can take lessons home, apply it to our daily lives. Be with us throughout the rest of this week. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Okay, number 461. We'll sing this song and then we'll dismiss into our classes. 461.
Thank y'all for staying and not going to the ladies' class. All right. We'll be in Gospel of John, chapter 6 tonight. And we'll start with this. A teacher asked her class students to list 7 wonders of the world. The students quickly wrote down their answers. They wrote down the Great Wall of China, the Egyptian pyramids, Taj Mahal, and so on. One girl sat quietly, still writing. The teacher noticed and asked, "What has taken you so long?" The girl whispered, "Can't decide because there's so many." When the teacher asked her to read her list, the girl stood and softly said, "To see, to hear, to touch, to taste, to feel, to love, to laugh." The classroom went silent. In that moment, everyone realized something important. They were too busy thinking about monuments built by man, while the girl was grateful for life itself. Sometimes, the greatest wonders of the world aren't built by human hands, but simple wonders created by the hands of God. Never take life's daily wonders for granted, because the real wonders are already in your hands. So tonight, we're going to look at the book of John, chapter 6. And we're going to see the wonders of the hands of Jesus. So let's start with verses 1 through 9. In these verses, John describes the preparation for Jesus' next miracle. After these things, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, or Tiberias. A large crowd followed him because they saw the signs which he was performing on those who were sick. And Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was near. Therefore, Jesus, lifting up his eyes and seeing that a large crowd was coming to him, said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these may eat?" This he was saying to test him, for he himself knew what he was intending to do. Philip answered, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient to feed them, not sufficient for them, for everyone to receive a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a lad who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. And what are these for so many people?" In verses 1 through 4, John now records some of the acts and words of Jesus in the Galilee region north of Judea. Earlier in our study, a long time ago it seems like, it said John mainly recorded things that Jesus said and did in Judea and in Jerusalem, but sometimes he included material from the other gospel writers who also wrote of things that happened in the Galilee region. This event makes the 4th time this miracle is recorded, so there must be something significant for all the writers to mention this miracle. The book of Luke gives us more information regarding this occasion. Jesus went out to a deserted place to be alone, Luke 9 and 10. Yet the crowds followed him there. One commentator by the name of Morris, that's his last name, not his first name, suggested the interpretation of the Greek verbs used by John in verse 2 provides the reason why the multitude kept following Jesus. They kept following Jesus because they continually saw the signs that Jesus habitually did on the sick. In spite of the imposition, Jesus still served the multitude with great compassion. In addition to performing signs for those who had diseases, Luke tells us Jesus also taught this multitude. That's found in Luke 9 and 11. Something John doesn't specifically mention here. One peculiar thing found in verse 4 is that John is the only writer of this event that takes the readers near the time of the Passover, which leads to speculation that this great multitude was made up of Galilean pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem. For John to mention the time of this miracle is to allow the miracle to connect or parallel with the feast of the Passover. The feast of the Passover is associated with Exodus and God's miraculous provision of sustenance to Israel in the wilderness. Just as God miraculously provided bread and meat for Israel in the wilderness, so will Jesus. Remember, Luke tells us that Jesus went into the desert alone and the multitude followed him. Moses led the nation of Israel into a wilderness desert. Perhaps this is John's intent of recording this event, to establish a relationship between the two events. The miracle that Jesus will perform will mirror the Exodus both physically and spiritually. Jesus going up to the mountain isn't like he's climbing a huge mountain as we might think. The meaning here is that Jesus went to a higher ground east of the lake, known today as the Golan Heights, which overlooks the level plain east of the river and the lake. Verses 5 through 7 concern themselves with Jesus asking Philip a question. Jesus asked Philip where they would buy bread that these people could eat. It is possible that Jesus chose to ask Philip this question because he was actually from a nearby Bethsaida. John doesn't say, as Mark does in Mark 6 and 31, that the crowd had been listening to Jesus' teaching all day, but this question would explain Jesus' concern about feeding the crowd. Jesus asked this question of Philip not so much because he wanted Philip to go and buy the bread, but because he knew he was going to perform a miracle. He asked the question to test Philip, to set up an opportunity for Jesus to teach his disciples. Jesus wasn't only about getting the job done, as in this case, feeding the crowd. It was also about using his miracles to teach his disciples. The miracle by itself would have been what the disciples had become accustomed to. But it would be the teaching coming out of the miracle that would be lasting in the minds of his disciples. The answer to the question that Philip provides comes in two parts. Make sure I'm on the right slide. Yeah, okay. Part 1, they didn't have the resources to buy the bread and feed everyone. Philip brings that out in his answer. Part 2, even if they had the money, it would be impossible to find a place that had enough bread to buy. What Philip provides in his answer is the human magnitude of Jesus' miracle. If there were a little that was needed, then the miracle wouldn't have been a big deal. Philip's answer gave everyone the human impossibility of the provision. Knowing Jesus' capability, the better answer might have been with our lack of resources. Why don't you just go ahead and perform a miracle? But Philip didn't go that far in his thinking. He was stuck on what was humanly possible and impossible. In doing so, he fails to recognize that all things are possible for God. By his answer, Philip places limitations on what Jesus could do. And as we think about that, isn't that the same with us? Don't we place limitations on God, our Creator? Don't we also place limitations on Jesus, our intercessor to God? 200 denarii worth of bread was an accurate amount to feed the masses, given the number fed. It shows how astute Philip was for the cost of things. But knowledge was useless in solving the problem. Philip thought in terms of money and how much money it would take to carry out God's work in a small way. Philip's monetary assessment only provided for the least that they needed. I wonder if at times we are like Philip, asking God to make only a minimal effort in answering our prayers instead of answering them in overabundance. In verses 8 and 9, we see Andrew's help. In discussing the problem of feeding the crowd, Andrew remembers something. There is a lad. Throughout the gospel, John depicts Andrew as someone who is always introducing someone to Jesus. Here he is introducing a young lad with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. So let's look at the barley loaves for a minute. Barley is a grain that was considered a simple food, more often fit for animals than for people. To describe the loaves of bread as barley gives the indication that the boy was poor. The 2 fish. Other evangelists describe the fish using an ordinary word, but John is more descriptive with his use of the word translated fish. This word indicates that the fish were small to be eaten as a relish along with the loaves of bread. Like lettuce for a sandwich you're going to eat later. It's going to be added to it. So the question, why the 5 loaves and 2 fish when Jesus could have asked his Father for the food to miraculously appear? Why did they even need the bread and the fish? You ever thought about that? I mean, Jesus had the power to go poof, there it is. Did he not? A couple of reasons come to mind. One, to the person performing the miracle, the bread and the fish were objects to be used for the people to see Jesus' divine nature. You have to see something to believe something. And these people, right at this moment, are looking at 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 fish. And the quandary is, it's going to feed everybody that's there. 2, there wasn't much to work with. God doesn't need much. In fact, God doesn't need anything at all. God often deliberately restrained his work in order to get man's participation. We will see this again when Jesus raises Lazarus. He deliberately waits because he needed everyone to be participating in the death of Lazarus. In our hands, we only see the limitations of what is possible. 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish to feed a multitude of people. But in God's hands, it's always the infinite possibility. So let's continue reading verses 10 through 13, where the 5,000 are fed. Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was much grass in the place. So the men sat down, in number about 5,000. Jesus then took the loaves, and having given thanks, he distributed to those who were seated. Likewise also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were filled, he said to his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments so that nothing will be lost." So they gathered them up, filled 12 baskets with fragments from the barley loaves, which were left over by those who had eaten. Jesus wasn't in a panic or a hurry. He had a big job ahead of him in providing food for the crowd. But thinking about that, Jesus' miracles were always precise and definitive. They had an arranged purpose. They were never haphazardly performed. This tells us that Jesus went about his work in an ordinary fashion so that the multitude could be counted. There's a lesson for us today. In our lives shouldn't be the spur of the moment, but the orderly in fashion. We explain the spur of the moment by saying we just went with our gut. You ever said that? That was a gut reaction. Just went with my gut on it. Jesus never had a gut reaction. The Gospels are filled with examples of a life lived in an ordinary fashion. The first thing Jesus did was to give thanks to his Father for what he now had. For what he had, not how much he had. All right. I want to take a moment here, and I want you to think about this. When you read that, it says, having given thanks, what was Jesus thankful for? Have you ever thought about that? A lot of times we use this verse as a reason for us giving thanks when we sit down to a meal. So I want to present something you might not have thought about. Jesus was about to perform a miracle. Could it be possible that Jesus was thanking God for the opportunity to do this miracle for these people? It's a difference, isn't it? Jesus was presented an opportunity to show and to glorify his Father. Could he not be thankful for that? Got another question for you. When did the miracle take place? Somewhere in between having given thanks and he distributed. Am I right or am I wrong? It only took John a few words to tell that the miracle had taken place, a few words to tell of the greatness of Jesus Christ. If we were to only read the Gospel of John, we take for granted that a miracle had happened, since John doesn't even record when the miracle took place. We have the 5 fish, and then we go all the way over to the 12 baskets that are left over. Somewhere in between, a miracle happened. And we associate it with Jesus because why? We have evidence that he is able to do this. A few words to tell the greatness of Jesus Christ. I already said all that stuff. Let's go here. Jesus then took the loaves, and having given thanks, he distributed to those who were seated. Somewhere in those few words, the miracle took place, while it was in his hands. You get that, right? Not after it's distributed, but while it was in his hands. All of Jesus' miracles, or most of them, came with him touching, using his hands. Very few times when he'd just say, hey, go off and dip yourself 7 times or whatever, did they ever do that, right? So here's something to consider. Looking more closely to when or where the miracle takes place, is it not possible to see the miracle happening in the broken pieces and not in the wholeness of the bread and the fish? Also, as the miracle was unfolding, most of those who ate were unaware that the miracle was taking place. And another thing to consider is that the role the disciples played were only in the distribution of what Jesus had done. Have you ever considered the distribution? Is there any importance there? Big importance. Big importance. The distribution by the disciples was deliberate. Jesus devised a way to bring his disciples into his work. And God does the same thing with us today. By providing us the Word, God has devised a way for us to be involved in his work of bringing people to Jesus. One last thing to consider. We tend to only consider the hunger of the crowd. It's what this focuses on, right? We're not told, but Jesus must have been hungry as well. Jesus had the capability to miraculously conjure up a pizza or a burger, but he wouldn't do that even for himself. Jesus gives us an example of doing something good for others that he wouldn't do for himself. It's an example of selflessness. How many times have you done something good for others that you wouldn't necessarily do for yourself? How many times have you sacrificed and given to others before you gave to yourself? You do it all the time, right? It's the mirror, that's the image of God within us. How much did God provide for the multitude? As much as they wanted. Jesus didn't say, all right, you only get 2 pieces of bread and 1 piece of fish. He didn't say that. He didn't put any limitations on them. All they did was pass out the food. And the people took all that they wanted and became full. Even the boy who provided the bread and the fish, he himself ended up with more than what he brought. In verses 12 and 13, we are given the magnitude of the miracle. When they were filled, Jesus had his disciples gather up what was left. In doing this, we see how generous Jesus was with the miracle. For John to mention how much was left over, it leaves no doubt of how remarkable the miracle was. It is a testimony to the greatness of God's power. We do this today, folks. We do this today. We help others by giving them more than what they need. We do this. I know you do this. And you will suffer for the need of others. You do that for your kids. You do that for your family. This is the image of God within us. There are Old Testament passages that warn against doubting God's provision. One of them is found in Psalm 78, verses 17 through 25. Yet they still continued to sin against him, to rebel against the Most High in the desert. In the desert. And in their heart they put God to the test by asking food according to their desire. Then they spoke against God. They said, "Can God prepare a table in the wilderness? Behold, he struck the rock so that the waters gushed out and streams were overflowing. Can he give bread also?" Will he provide meat for his people? Therefore the Lord heard and was full of wrath, and a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also mounted against Israel. But they did not believe in God, and did not trust in his salvation. Yet he commanded the clouds above, and opened up the doors of heaven. He rained down manna upon them to eat, and he gave them food from heaven. Man did not eat the bread of angels. Man did eat the bread of angels. He sent them food in abundance. Even when his own people doubted God, God provided for them in abundance. So let's stop here for a minute. Considering God's provision, could Jesus be reenacting a miracle performed by God in the Old Testament? Second Kings, chapter 4, verses 38 through 44. The poisonous stew. Remember that one? The poisonous stew. When Elijah returned to Gilgal, there was a famine in the land. As the sons of the prophets were sitting before him, he said to his servants, "Put on the large pot and boil stew for the sons of the prophets." Then one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered from it his lap full of wild gourds, and came and sliced them into the pot of stew, for they did not know what they were. So they poured it out for the men to eat, and as they were eating the stew, they cried out and said, "O man of God, there is death in the pot." And they were unable to eat, but he said, "Now bring meal." He threw it into the pot and said, "Pour it out for the people they want, that they may eat." There was no harm in the pot. Now a man came from, I'm going to butcher this one, Baal Shalashah, and brought the man of God bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley, and fresh ears of grain from his sack. And he said, "Give them to the people that they may eat." His attendants said, "What will I set before 100 men?" But he said, "Give them to the people that they may eat, for thus says the Lord, they shall eat and have some left over." So he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of the Lord. Similar, isn't it? Pretty close. When we consider the role of the disciples in John's account, it wasn't important if the disciples understood or anticipated the miracle. They were only there to distribute the bread and the fish. The important takeaway is that without their work, no one would have been fed. Without our work in spreading the gospel, no one will come to Jesus. The object lesson taught by Jesus was a demonstration of the giving character of God. Being created in the image of God, it is the same character God desires to build within us. Jesus wanted all that were fed to recognize how much God will give to the ones he loves. No greater example of this will come when God's Son is taken to the cross to die for the sins of all. No miracle performed by Jesus was wasteful. Gathering up the fragments so that nothing was lost showed how generous Jesus was, but nothing about his miracle was to be wasted. Jesus wanted to make good use of everything. We saw this in the first miracle in Cana when Jesus changed the water to wine. What was the quality of the wine? Was it mediocre? I mean, everybody was already drunk or desensitized to what they were drinking, but yet Jesus made what? The best wine that the chief taste tester had ever had. Jesus didn't just make excellent wine where the leftovers would be wasted. The leftovers could have been used for the greater good of perhaps providing a monetary value for the newlyweds. Sell the wine, make some money, so that they can start off their marriage well. If we consider what was gathered, we are not talking about half-eaten morsels or crumbs more suitable for the birds. What was gathered were broken portions handed out for distribution to be used at another time. So, looking at verses 14 and 15, we will see the reaction of the miracle. Therefore, when the people saw the sign which he had performed, they said, "This is truly the prophet who is to come into the world." So Jesus, perceiving that they were intending to come and take him by force to make him king, withdrew again to the mountain by himself all alone. There's a lot of things going on here in these two verses. So what was the overall umbrella reaction to the miracle? Two things happen here. One, remembrance. Two, expectation. Though Jesus didn't announce his miracle, many recognized what was happening. They considered what they saw as a sign and were reminded of God working through Moses to feed Israel with manna in the wilderness. This is made evident when they said, "This is truly the prophet who has come into the world." So who predicted this? This idea of the prophet that's coming into the world. Who predicted this? Moses. Why? Where are they going? Jerusalem. For what? The Passover. Who led the people out of Egypt? Moses. Moses is the one who prophesied that a prophet would come into the world. You see this in Deuteronomy 18 and 15. "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your countrymen. You shall listen to him." This is what they remembered. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't have remembered this, but they did. If the coming prophet was to be like Moses, it made sense that he would also feed the people miraculously as Moses did. In verse 15, we get the immediate reaction from the crowd. They wanted a king, not a spiritual king, but an earthly king. The crowd was willing to support Jesus as long as he gave them what they wanted, which was bread, and in return they wanted it their way by taking Jesus and forcing him to be their king. That's how Jesus saw it. It's easy to criticize how the crowd loved Jesus for the bread he gave them, but we often only love Jesus for what he gives us. Isn't it true? I can't love Jesus unless he does X. We just can't love Jesus for being Jesus, can we? Sometimes it's hard. But Jesus wants us to be obedient to him because of who he is and not what we expect from him. The term king indicates a political title. The crowd saw Jesus' miraculous power and they wanted him to use that power to overthrow the Roman government. So, we see how the people reacted. How did Jesus respond to the people? He departed again. He left them. He walked away from them. He went to a mountain to be, what? By himself. His true intent to begin with. That's what he wanted to do at the very beginning. He wanted to be alone. Jesus wasn't impressed or seduced by the crowd that wanted him to be king. It's an example to us that God isn't persuaded by man's desires. Jesus turned his back on the crowd and went to pray. Jesus was more interested in being with his Father than in hearing the applause of the crowd. What are we more interested in? I wonder. The temptation of the crowd to be an earthly king would be a reminder of Jesus' temptation by Satan in Matthew 4, verses 8 and 9. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these things I will give you if you fall down and worship me. Isn't that what the people were doing to Jesus? Telling him he could have it all if you would just be an earthly king. Satan is always at work, when not with Jesus, but with the people around him. And we'll stop there. Any questions? You got like 3 seconds ago. All right, thank you.